Hey guys, what is going on? So, update of week 3 of the Naked Body Scanner. Um, I'm just going to talk about the main things that I noticed between, today's scan. I just did it. So, the scan that I just took, one from last week, and then, the other ones. And basically, the main differences were, my waist, and my waist and stomach, so they take those measurements, and thus my body fat percentage. So I remember when I was initially taking the scans, maybe, a little bit more nervous, or maybe like kind of in the back of my head sucking in a little bit. I didn't try to do that, but I definitely could understand if that was something that, I was limiting my breathing or something like that. So, in this last scan that I did, I feel like I was a lot more relaxed, which was probably more of my natural, how my stomach or whatever would actually hang. So, when that happened, my waist and hip measurements went up, or not my waist and hip, my waist and stomach measurements went up. And that means that it accounted for, so I increased maybe like 0.7 pounds, which is just a normal fluctuation. I don't know if I actually gained any actual mass. I mean, could have just been like some water weight of some type. But I think that increase that they said, so they said I increased my fat mass by like 4 pounds, I think. So basically, I think what the scan is doing is saying, hey, you're increasing your stomach fat, and so it increased in this many inches, and therefore you increase that much fat, which to increase 4 pounds of fat in a week, I don't think that happened. But, like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of fluctuations, especially with something like your stomach, like depending on what you've eaten, how much that fluctuates. So I think something like that is a very big, con for something like this. If it's going to be like, hey, the average person is going to store X amount of fat here. So like I have started to store fat here, because once I accumulate a certain amount of fat, it starts storing here. But I'm more of somebody who accumulates, fat in my legs, and that's something that without, the scan couldn't really know that, and so I think, if you're going to be fluctuating, eating different times, having different water weight and stuff like that, these little fluctuations are going to happen. And it's going to say that you're increasing or decreasing your fat mass when you're really not. I think the biggest thing that this scanner does for me is the measurements that aren't your waist. So things like shoulders, chest, legs, arms. I think those things would fluctuate less, and I think the precision, could be a little bit tighter on that. So if you increase, the size of your arms, by doing like weightlifting and stuff, and you can see, visually on the models of yourself, it's a lot more easy to conclude that you've gained muscle, if you've added inches to your arms. Now, obviously, you could store fat there, and so that's why this is a very imperfect thing. So, like, as time goes on, I'm just kind of realizing that the accuracy of this is, a little bit, like, in terms of body fat percentage, just doesn't seem like it's very good. It just seems like it, will take your measurements into account, which is something that you could do, with a tape measure. That being said, it takes all your measurements at once. And for me, I think it's visually being able to look at my body scan and see, maybe this is what the number is saying, in terms of fat mass, but like the changes that I've seen in my body, maybe you can look at that, and because it's not an image of you with lighting, it's like in a scan, you are able to look at it a bit more objectively. So for me, I think, I was really hoping that the body fat percentage would be a little bit more of a dependable measure, but if it fluctuates way too much, in my opinion, and I don't really think it's a super accurate measure. So I would take this, with a grain of salt. I doubt anybody watching this even has it. I don't think a lot of people have it right now, but I think that's something to consider. Now, for me, what I've looked at, I'm looking at my model, and I've been doing a lot of like back exercises. I've been trying to work on my like deadlift and stuff like that. And I can see I'm starting to get you know, a little bit more of that V taper. Like, it's subtle, but it's there. And I'm starting to see just less of kind of like this up and down shape and a little bit more like this. Now, maybe I'm, you know, thinking in my head my back should be growing, but I really think if you look at the picture side to side, you can tell, you know, it's a subtle difference, but it's there. There's that. You know, my shoulder measurements have gone up consistently, and I've been working on my shoulder recently. My arms haven't really changed one way or another, which is weird because I've been feeling really sore in my triceps over the past month or so. So you'd think I'd be building muscle there, but it doesn't really seem to be much of a difference there. However, another area that I've noticed a lot, which is kind of weird, is my legs have, you know, every measurement of my legs except my calves have stayed the same, but every measurement, like for my upper, lower, on both sides, upper and lower thighs, they have decreased pretty significantly. I don't know the exact, like, you know, inches or anything like that, or point, like half an inch or whatever, but it has been consistent and it seems to be going down. And I don't know if that means that I'm losing fat around my legs, because that is where I store a lot of my fat. It very well could be that, but that is something that I have noticed. So over time, I think, you know, if I consistently took the scan on an empty stomach, which is something I probably should have been doing, I basically just started to do it as opposed to doing it right when I wake up. You know, I do it like, so today it's technically Friday, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to do the scan on Friday. I kind of wanted to get away from it having to be the same, you know, thing every single time of like me waking up in the morning, just because sometimes I would forget, and then I'd be like, oh, I have to do it, and I already ate, and that already happened to me twice. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it on a Friday, whenever it is, and over time these will change. But realistically, you know, you really should be taking these scans on an empty stomach, like right when you wake up every single time. And even if it's not like, so I might get away from, hey, I have to scan every single Friday, to being, hey, I'm going to scan roughly once a week, but make sure it's on an empty stomach when I wake up, you know, to make it more consistent. So for me, I've had very fluctuating, you know, stomach measurements, waist measurements. But the other ones, you know, I've basically been noticing increasing my shoulders and chest, which I think means I'm increasing muscle there, and decreasing, you know, in my thighs. So I think that's meaning I might be losing fat in those areas, but I could be wrong. And then depending on what I've eaten and what I haven't eaten, my waist measurement. So I wouldn't be surprised if next week, if I try and take the scan when I wake up in the morning, with no type of, you know, anything in my system, I would see a spike in my lean mass and a drop in my fat mass. Now that's just, you know, a guess, but I really am going to do that next time. Like, even if I take it on a Thursday or a Saturday, I'm going to take it on an empty stomach next time and see what happens. So, again, I didn't expect this, you know, thing to be perfect, but I really think the visual representation you get of your body, and being able to track that over time, as well as just the ease of the measurements, is kind of what I was looking for. And I was hoping, you know, that the body fat percentage would be, you know, pretty accurate, but it seems to be a little bit underwhelming to me. But, you know, it's only been 3 weeks, so we'll see. But the fluctuations do seem to be pretty big. So, yeah, that's what I got to report there, and I'll keep you updated.